All right, good afternoon. Welcome to day one of our book club on Get Out of Your Way, Live Your Life for You. So, as I've mentioned previously, you don't need to have the book. We're going to digest it right here every Sunday at 3 o'clock for the next 25 weeks. Today we kick off with letter A, and we'll spend the next hour talking about the letter A, and it stands for action. So I'm really excited that you guys are here today with me because you're taking the first step towards doing something, making something happen that's been stirring on your heart. And so I'm imagining that's what brought you here. And I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at my book or you're familiar with it, but starting with the letter A, and then I made it action. And that's the strategy that I determined for the letter, because for me personally, nothing can happen unless you take action. And, the second part of that equation is you. And we've grown up and we continue to always hear remarks about you are the common denominator, that you are your worst critic, your best ally. And the reality is that you're always there. So you might as well start standing in your own corner. And that's where we are. We're here. We're going to be our own force. And so the whole title of the book, Get Out of Your Way, it's because of us. We are the ally, we are the critic, so we are the obstacle. So often you decide to do something and it's because it's feeling good, you've thought about it for a long time, or you're feeling spontaneous, whatever. But it's as soon as we give ourselves that permission to just run with it, do it. And so for me personally, I had discovered that early on, that if I could get out of my head and start to recognize that I can create the moments that I want and experience life as I'm dreaming it, then, let me just figure me out. And so that's where the rest of these letters come into play. A to Z, they're all mind strategies, techniques, intentions that I've continued to practice. Because if I do, I know deep down that I am showing up, I'm being my best self, and in doing that, I am aiming to live my best life. So, all right. And I too, I recognize that you're here, Becky and, Nancy, seeing you here. I imagine there's a reason, maybe something that you want to act on. You're going to use this space for something, and it's something for you. And, I know a lot of times we've put off doing those things, whether it's taking a chunk of your Sunday afternoon to read a book because you feel like I should be spending that time, doing laundry, preparing for the work week, taking the dog for a walk. All good things to do too. Sometimes though, you want to maybe just focus on you and what you're going to get out of it and the gains of that and how that will ripple for the rest of your week too. So it's taking the action on those things that are for you, and maybe kind of looking at casting to the side those expectations that you think other people have of you. Gosh darn, I'm going to make a great Sunday dinner tonight. My family's going to love it, and all these things you think about. I think, I was raised, I'm going to make a beautiful dessert, all this, and then I get really caught up in that, and I'm going to do it to some extent. But I've learned over time, I don't have to devote 4 hours to doing it. I can still pull it off and have a lovely moment and still have given myself space to do something that's going to bring me some joy. So, I wanted to recognize that, because I think so often, because I am feeling that, others are judging me, wanting more from me, that I should, work late so that, things are done as perfect as I can make them, that's what I need to do, because I'm going to look good. People are going to be happy. It really, for me, it was rooted a lot with fear. I don't want to let anybody down. I think sometimes we don't do things, whether it's exercising, because you think you should spend more time with your kids. Not that it's not a good thing to spend time with the loved ones we have. But so often people lose sight of how taking care of themselves. And sometimes it is the fear, like, oh, I want to look like the best mom in the world. You sure can, and you can devote more time to yourself and stop fearing what other people think of you, and really think about yourself and how amazing you are and how much more you want to feel like that, that you are the rock star. We were just talking about Pink, and she's a great role model, a woman, a person, a mom. She's not doing any of it like the shoulding, because if she was, she probably would have left her family at home. Didn't want to rock anything, right? She would have, no, no pun intended, but she wouldn't want to have, thrown them off, and make their life as stable and calm. Yet she jumped into doing something that, for many people think is radical, but not in our day, not in today's world, right? It's why not, and what if, and choosing to believe that it is possible, right? You can be a wonderful mom and take your family on the road. Who says you couldn't, and that's where I think other people's fears and insecurities, right? They might kind of drive that wedge between things that we are, finding continue to stir in our hearts and on our minds for years. And then all of a sudden it could take things like, losing someone or realizing how life short is short and you want to do it. So I really am looking forward to the next 25 weeks together and how we might be able to borrow, confidence from one another and feel the inspiration that we are building, for accomplishing some of the things that you want to do, and utilizing the ABCs, the strategies that are in the book, or even that they're generating ideas for you of things that work for you to get stuff done, to jump all in. So I'm sorry, and you have your hand up, Becky.
Yeah, Tam, I wanted to say like what I'm excited about and why I love the layout of the book so much is that and actually I don't know if you how much you touched on it. You probably ad-libbed and the Dear Reader section of the beginning of the book. But two things I wanted to share that I highlighted in that was, let me just shift this here. Okay, was only you know what you want and need on your journey. Exactly what these desires look like or how they feel is up to you to explore. So that's really what you were just talking about, that we all have our own feelings about what we desire and our own inclination about like how it may be perceived, and that this book is really an encouragement for us to get out of our way, get out of our head about what other people may be thinking, may not be thinking really. I mean, they're not thinking about us, right? Like it's fleeting thoughts, but I love that that's highlighted in your the first part of your Dear Reader section before we dive into the A. And then the second part I highlighted in that was the act of writing down your thoughts and intentions will help you remain accountable to yourself. So what I love about the layout of this book for anyone that doesn't yet have the book is that Tammy has some great mindset shifts and one-liners to just kind of get us in this mindset, and then prompts and questions to journal. And I love the encouragement right at the beginning of the book about how important it is to write those thoughts down and to really give space to what we intend, especially going through this, week by week. That's the power of the intention that we're bringing to the way that we want to live our life for ourselves, right? Not for our family, not for our business, but really for ourselves first, which is why I'm here and so excited to dive into this with you guiding it, Tammy, as the author, because it's simple and right, we complicate simple so easily that I'm excited to have the space on Sundays to dive into these one by one. So thank you for taking the time to to digest this with us and give us the space to really dive into each letter and have a space to be able to have discussions around it too. Because, like I said, I know I personally can complicate the simple.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone.
I love that. So I'm gonna just add 2 thoughts, definitely around complicating the simple. Um, it's because it's so simple, it's also very easy to overlook those powerful one-liners in the book. And so thanks for pointing those out, Becky. And Tammy, something you said when you were just kind of talking about why you wrote the book, that I don't think, now it might be in here, but the word that really jumped out to me is I have permission. I have permission to want what I want, to explore these. And so I added that at the end of your
Mhm.
dear readers, I have permission, because sometimes I think it's just nice to hear those words that, yes, it's in our hands, but to also give ourselves the permission to take the time to do this. So that really jumps out at me. As another one-liner that you said, and if it's in there, I'm sorry if I missed it, but I love it. I love the idea of giving ourselves permission, and you as the author are giving it to us by writing the concepts to get us to take the time to have the permission to do it. And then the other thing, and this is so funny because I've looked at your book several times, and I have not written in it at all, but I went through all of them, and I kept thinking, this is the most interesting font. I don't know what it is about this font. Like, some of the letters are thicker and blah, blah, blah. And I finally noticed today the little surprise of all of the lowercase i's and j's. I'm not going to say what the surprise is
No.
in case somebody doesn't have the,
Oh.
but I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why I think I was like, I was picking up on something, but I didn't see it. And now I see that very intentional move that you made that is like, that is like, that is a hidden gem throughout the book and a subliminal message. So just saying, that's all I'm gonna say. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
Well, no, I appreciate that. I thought what we would do is dive in, and I could read. I know if you have the book, you can certainly, move to page 1, move to the letter A, and I'll read a bit to you. I thought we could review the first part, and then we'll pause, and we'll then move into the questions in a bit. See how you digest this. So, as you might have noticed, if you have looked or read ahead, you would see that with each letter, I do have a quote or a statement, for your very first page. And it's to really help you digest, this is the strategy, this is the intention, and you kind of get a feeling of it. So for A, it reads, never underestimate the power you have to take your life in a new direction.
Hmm. I love the word power, and that it's inside of us, and action is power. Ooh.
and it's yours. You control it.
Mhm.
Just need to choose, take the initiative, do it.
I like too that you use the word take. Never underestimate the power you have to take your life in a new direction. Because then as you're talking about it, to choose but take is an interesting word. Like what are all there's a variety of ways you can take your life in a new direction, right? Like you can it can be through action, it can be through words, it can be through choices.
Oh, Nancy, and it could be little. It could seem like they're very little steps or a decision. Yet we all know the little things are huge. And so often the little things do make up the big, big picture. But so often it's so much of what we do day in and day out and take for granted. And it's actions of a hug, a wave, just a gesture, hello, something you might do in the morning. And it just brings a lot of joy. And you miss it for a few days, and then you start to realize the ripple effect of the void of not having it, doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts for you, Beck?
I like the reminder of the never underestimating, how we've been talking about just giving ourselves that permission and the fresh perspective that every day is a new day. And like the underestimate, I feel like I know a lot about my power, but I know that there's definitely parts that I still underestimate about myself. So I just feel like there's a depth in even just that one liner on this first page that like calls to me to be like excited about taking action.
I mentioned the stirring, and I really do believe that so often there's the fleeting thoughts and the stirring where something you might walk by, a house, a rock, or a tree, day in and day out, and it might constantly trigger a thought or desire or something, and you might push it down over and over thinking, oh, that's silly, that's ridiculous. I mean, I can think of a handful of them, from the point of walking by a vacant lot 20 some years ago that my house stands on now, and thinking, oh, what a beautiful spot. Look at the rocks in the backyard and the trees. And again, I'll admit, there was a lot of times I was like, oh, that's silly. That's a dream. It's dreamy. That's fun. It's great to imagine. And yeah, we had moments, as we started to build some traction on the idea. And then we're like, oh, it's not in the cards. It's not going to happen. Not meant to be. And then, you open up your mind and believe that everyone is worthy of these possibilities, and to not discount, that you aren't worthy, you're not of value, you don't deserve what you want. And I know there's a lot of us, and it's not something we can just shut down. It'll be there. We'll get those occasional thoughts of underestimating ourselves. And yeah, now and then you'll make a decision and you're like, oh, I should have went all in on that one, or you surprise yourself and you're so excited because, like if I go bowling and I bowl over a 150, that's pretty awesome because I got some, strikes.
I love it. I wrote a bracket. I put a bracket above never underestimate. And I wrote in, I'm starting to do what Becky does, I think. I don't know, but I wrote in, constantly remind myself of the power I have to take my life in a new direction. Like that, I feel like I have control over. And so your never underestimate got me thinking about, well, what does that look like for me? Because like you said, I will underestimate, right? Like that's our human nature. So it's the shift from, okay, if I am underestimating myself, remind myself that I have the power to take control.
Yeah, that's good. I
And
like that. That brings it back to the choice, that we have to get out of our own way.
Yep.
and I've seen a t-shirt that read, I like to get out of my head, like, because if you do, then you're not combating all these, negatives or, the idea that, oh, that looks too hard for me. That's not going to happen. But it's, this will feed, when we get into other letters too, but, you put in the formula or the recipe of, belief, the faith and effort, diligence, right? You can't just, I think many of us, we all love the idea of the genie or magic, right? Or just, well, what? This is, this is like winning the lottery. It's unbelievable. It's a miracle. So often we've contributed to that. And that's where if you realize you give, you can take, like you put forth all the energy and the dedication, then you deserve that outcome. So I think sometimes these outcomes can be pretty amazing, and of course, all in their own right. But power, I like that too, to feel powerful as a person.
I'm gonna just highlight, if anyone that's listening thinks that she just gave away the B as belief or the E as effort, you're wrong. Those are not those letters.
Yes, surprise, surprise.
It's not that
Uh-huh.
simple. It's a deeper dive than that. So I love it. All right. My brain instantly was like, oh, Tammy, are you telling us the letters ahead of time? So I had to go peek in my book and I was like, oh no, she's not giving it away. So super fun
Uh-huh.
little trickles of excitement there that I'm like, is it belief? Nope.
Mhm.
But
Which
they're
is
infused
really,
in here.
and that's what I love about it, is it's not, it's not only the traditional stuff we talk about. It is deeper. Yeah, I love that. And even this, just, I mean, I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, I would have never gotten this on my own without sitting here and taking the time to do this and really look at the words. You know, I I would have read it and then went answer the questions and moved on. I wouldn't be thinking about just this statement. Never underestimate the power you have to take your life in a new direction. I mean, there's just so many different words to decipher in there. What's a new direction? Ooh, you know, even that changes.
Yeah. So I too, and I obviously I wrote this book based on what I needed and what I found caught my attention. And I've shared through the book, more at the end, and I know at the beginning a little with the dear reader, how none of these strategies are super unique to me. I didn't invent them. I heard them, learned them from people like you. I've seen them in books. We've read other book clubs together, and I just compiled what I appreciated out of all of those resources and put them here. And then yes, I formatted them in a way that for me helps put things in perspective, so we started off with a statement, and we went over, this solid statement, that underestimating, and taking your life in a new direction. And then the next segment builds on that a bit. So I'll read these statements, and part of me questioned whether I could read them one by one. I'm sure we've got time if you want to dissect them. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts or requests? Should I go through all of them, or do you want me to read them and we can chat about one at a time?
Yeah, let's just do one at a time.
Okay.
And I don't think we have to talk as long about each one, but I kind of like the idea of pausing. Gives you that chance to really reflect, engage, align, and lead yourself.
Amen.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So we lead off with, look at your life as happening for you, not to you.
So we hear this one, and look at your life as happening for you and not to you. And I always think of the Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Like, if everything is happening for you, I go to, what am I learning? Because a lot of times, sometimes, not a lot of times, but sometimes things don't feel like, they don't feel good. So I think if they don't feel good in the moment, it feels like it's happening to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, my
And
first thought.
so,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead. I'm not sure what else to say, so you go.
I was just gonna say that my first thought is that this is when I'm always like, that's OP. Like that's like what I first think of when I think about this experience, this, opportunity happening for me. That's when I think about it being on purpose. It's by design in some way, shape, or form, whether I know that it is today or I know that it is, later when I connect that dot to whatever experience it was, that I instantly think about how important it is as a reminder that, you know, there's a greater thing happening than what's happening in this very moment that ripples, and it's intentional.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's a matter of time, right? Right in this moment, you might not be able to grasp the meaning, the lesson. It might take days, years for you to all of a sudden put something in perspective and to see it. Certainly we can see things different. In a week from now, I might, see something that happened, one way, but it could be built on for the next year or two and realize, wow, that was what really helped build me to feel confidence and, bowling or whatever it be. But choosing to have that perspective, it kind of builds on the earlier remark about taking your life in a different direction, like the choice, not being the victim. That was a big for me. Yeah. I think sometimes we're groomed by society to kind of fall into, oh, what's happened to you? Oh, you're having a hard day. And, if you didn't do it, certainly practicing the mindset of happening for you allows for your days to be easier, even when they're not the most delightful. All right. So moving on to the next statement. Clear your focus on what you want and take the wheel. Any thoughts?
Well, I love car analogies throughout this whole thing. So I'm always about, and I'm a control freak. Like I happily say that I like to control things in certain ways. So taking the wheel just really puts in perspective to me about that I am in control of the direction that I want my life to go. It's a matter of being clear, right? Crystal clear, right, Nancy? About
Mhm.
what we want in our life and the direction that we want to go. And then we control that.
Yeah. And I really like this because had to read it twice because I was like, okay, so focus on what you want and take the wheel. But then I went, clear your focus. And I feel like, yeah, it's like, clear your focus. Like I picture like, okay, you're driving somewhere and there's fog. So what can you do to clear the focus? You come in closer and you take the wheel and you go as far as you can go until you see more, see more distance, right? And so it's like clear your focus either by coming in closer or tuning out the, sidelines or whatever the way is, you have to clear it. Clear it.
Think of windshield wipers.
Yeah.
Clear
Yeah.
that off your view, right? Like
Mhm.
the layer that gets put on there by maybe that's everybody else's shoulds or expectations or all of those things. That's the fog that ends up happening on our windshield. And I love that you pointed that out. Clear your focus.
Mhm.
Well, we lose sight sometimes of what we think we are working toward, of what we want in life. We get caught up doing life. And sometimes we're, again, like the earlier statement, you're letting it just keep happening, and you feel like Groundhog's Day. And you might vent to people that you're just not happy. Well, in that moment, you're like, well, what are you doing all this for? Like, what is it that you're aiming toward? And and yeah, I like the car analogies too a lot. You're taking the wheel to not feel as you're, riding shotgun and just gonna roll with it day after day. So we'll go on to the next statement.
Mhm.
Life is an open road and you are in the driver's seat.
Mhm. I just love that it's like, okay, clear the focus, take the wheel, get on the road and go. Like, like, and it reminds me like you get to decide. And this is to me the difference between like deciding and choosing. Like you can choose that you're gonna take the wheel. Now you get to decide where you're going on the open road. There's a lot of pieces, different choices to decide. And so it's like it's not choosing one or two things, it's deciding, ooh, where are you going on the open road? Are you going to get off the open road and go on a path? Are you going to, yeah.
Mhm.
I love the open road part too, simply because it shows that it's, more of an unlimited opportunity. You can go anywhere you
Mm.
want. It's open.
Yeah, I like that. And part of the reason for that statement is because I don't know if it's how we're conditioned or it's the easier path to have in sight is that, you just fall into what maybe considered the like social norm. Like, oh, I will get married. I'll try to have kids. And then I'm gonna, keep working. Then I retire and then I'll probably die. But if you realize the sky is it's wide open, limitless opportunities, and you are in that driver's seat, I, it's just you're it. Go where you want. It's pulling in the journey concept, and that's life. That's what we're meant for. And then, to build on that, the next statement, yeah, there will be bumps and potholes along the way. And, kind of playing with that metaphor of the wide open highway. Try lots of things. Go places. Make different
Mm.
decisions, right?
Yeah, I think of like, bracing yourself for some unexpected things along the way, right? Because we can make these, clear the path and get on the open road, but there will be things that'll all of a sudden show up that we didn't necessarily plan for. And being ready for, being aware of that is important. That it's not going to be smooth sailing the whole time.
Sure. And then the next statement is the rough patches grow and shape us.
Yeah, I think of like our reflexes getting better, right? Like thinking of the driving, it's like, oh, there's some rough road. Okay, well, we can make the choice to kind of scoot over away from it. We can plan for, leaning into it and just being like, okay, I'm holding a little bit tighter. I think of a rumble strip actually, of like when I hit that, I'm like, oh, am I gonna hang here for another second, or am I gonna jerk back in and get back into, the smooth part of the road? And the shaping us part made me think of just the reflex and how we're going to course correct when those rough patches happen on the journey.
I like the rumble strips, and I was like, "But what do rumble strips do? They wake me up."
Mm.
It's like, oh, pay attention, something's happening, right? And that's what I think, that's when we grow and shape ourselves, is when we're aware, we're tuned in, we're awake.
Yeah, and then building from there is how you get to steer towards your choices. That's how I wrapped it up.
Mm.
You are driving. You've got that wheel. You're steering it.
Something I wrote in my book, this is probably the only thing that's wrote in here. I highlighted those first couple things, but then I started at the A and I wrote something in between those one-liners that you just shared. I wrote, life is what you make of it, with faith, love, and hope. And just,
Mm.
like those are my choices. I think that's why I wrote that. And I don't know when I wrote that specifically because I didn't date it, but um faith, love, and hope, I think those are my choices, right? When I think about those rough patches and the way that I want to be shaped along my path and my journey, that using those as like um guardrails
Yeah.
as a way to
Mm.
stay on my path and in my lane with my choices.
Mm.
Mm, very good. All right, so that brings us to the task part. So with action as a strategy, you want to give some thought to how the action approach makes you feel.
Well, it's funny because this is like a teeter-totter for me, right? It's like, well, on one side, it's like, yes, I'm in control. And then the other side, it's like, oh crap, I'm the only one who can do it, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, it's not really scary. I can't think of the quite right word, but like, you know,
Intimidating?
yeah, intimidating a little. I don't know. Yeah. Uh, but if I don't like where my life is headed, then I'm the only one who can change that
Mm.
by either a choice or decision I make. Right? I mean, some people would say, well, God's the only one who could change that. But I think in order to follow God, that's a decision you're making. So only you can make the decision to tune into what, God has in store for you. So, okay.
Yeah, and we can't know that without taking the action, because how do we know what feels right if we're not moving toward it?
Mm-hmm.
So the action is required.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it is tuning in. I like that expression. Tuning in, the stirrings, the voice, the whispers that you might have heard over and over, a yearning to do something, try it. You take action to go listen. I think too, we've all grown up where you said on the movie sets and things, you're like, okay, action. It's it's the momentum. It's like, all right, go. I like it. It was only a few years ago. I remember it was one of my daughter's friends, and I think I was saying something about how I wasn't getting something done. She's like, just do it. And she had on the shirt for Nike. And I was like, I still love that. I love all the statements and things, but I'm like, that one, that's a good one. We've had forever. And sometimes you just need to do it, take action. Because it's rooted in this fear that we could build from is you don't know how things are going to look or feel when you start to execute, some of your steps to try it out, and sometimes they're bigger impacts on your life than others. So, but just gotta give it a whirl and live. All right, the next question. How will action support you? So using the strategy, how's that going to support you and what you want to do? How you want to show up?
I said it's going to help me make progress with change instead of just experiencing change. I mean, because I think it's inevitable that things will change. So by taking action, I'm getting to choose the progress I make with the change versus becoming a victim of it. I don't know if victim's the right word, but anyhow, stay in the game, constant growth. That's how it will support me.
I think that's stay in the game.
I think about just that course correction that I already said, the action is, doing something about when it doesn't feel like alignment, when I think I need a new direction, right? Or when I feel that power to go in a new route. It's like, that's how it will support me, to know that I remind myself that taking action is the power that I have, the choice that I have, and the movement that I can make.
Like that. Gosh, Nancy, your reference to life being a game, like I know I'm stretching that a bit. However, that's another perspective to take too, like staying in the game. Like, could we choose, maybe some people do look at a game, it's a journey, it's a road trip, whatever you want to call it. And maybe when we do get those, desires, or, you're trying to figure out what's rooted in a frustration, or, you're angry about something. And if you maybe give some traction to thoughts or ideas, or, you know, you're staying in the game. Like if you feed the thought that, yeah, you know what, I do want to try hiking, and I'm gonna get myself some hiking shoes. Now I've got the hiking shoes. So I'm gonna have to take them hiking, or just kind of building on something that you want to do. And I mean, we could be talking all different things. Looking at, kids want to look into whether they want to explore college or what's after high school. Like, do research, like, get some materials, read. That's the next step. Read them, digest it. But taking that action.
So it's funny because the word I used was actually gain, GAIN. However, as
Oh,
you were talking about game, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, stay in the game. And then as you were talking, I was like, oh, and I think about that. The game changes with the seasons, right? So stay in soccer until it's football time, and then get on board with football until it's basketball time, and then, you know, when's the season for running, and like the game isn't always the same, right? The game is along the journey too, or maybe it's more like if you're on the road, the stops you're going to make along the way, stay on the journey, right?
okay. So I like that though. Stay in the gain. Gain.
Yeah, and that's a there's a good book called The Gap and the Gain. That's where that's from.
Yeah. I think you
Yeah.
both read that. Becky, you read that too?
Yes, Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah, I want to read that. Okay. So remind me, like, how do I think about the gain? Like things that I'm gaining.
So it's the bottom line, the difference between the gap and the gain is how you measure your results. So if you're in the gap, you're measuring to the ideal, the place you were trying to get to. And if you don't get there, you're beating yourself up. Where if you measure to the gain, it's the progress you've made from where you started. So it's seeing the wins along the way instead of the what you didn't achieve.
I love that. Looking in the rearview mirror, or looking at the map
Yeah.
to see how far. I love that. We don't do that too often, right? Unroll the paper map. Like, look.
Yeah, right. And then what we do is we say, oh, there's still 200 more miles.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Even though we've gone 600.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was all rain and sleet and snow. Okay. Ooh, I just did a time check. Oh, ladies, almost 4. Well,
All right. Are we going to make a commitment?
yeah,
I
well,
want to
here we
incorporate
go.
action.
Yeah, how will you do it? And you don't have to answer right now, but that is your question for you to ponder and determine what you're going to choose, decide to do. How can you
Oh,
incorporate action into your life starting today?
oh, I love this, because then next week we can start with that question. How did we?
I like that. All right, that's a great intention.
Ooh.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It was so good to see you and spend this last hour talking through action. It was fun.
Woohoo. It
Very
was.
exciting.
Thanks, Tammy.
Tam,
This
I
is
want to
really
point out
good.
One more thing too that I love, which is I think unique and fun, is that the next page says notes, pictures, sketches to self. So being creative, being creative about, the conversation. So I might go in and draw a picture of a car, and the car analogies that we talk through. But I loved the space in the book to be able to do the writing or sketching or however creatively this is speaking to me to be able to make it my own. So I love that part. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. All right. Well, thanks
Yay.
so much. You ladies have a
Good
fabulous week.
discussion. Bye.
Okay, goodbye.